Welcome to IGH Going Rogue. Today is Tuesday. We are 7 days away from the election, from re-electing President Donald J. Trump. For those of you guys that saw the rally in Madison Square Garden, wow, what an event, what a speech. Everybody really came through. You're looking at the numbers at the polls. Everywhere the president is ahead nationally. He's ahead in the battleground states. He's ahead in just about every demographic. You look at the black vote, he's got 32%. He's probably pushing closer or over 50% with Hispanics. He's got a 16-point edge with males. The only group that he's down is actually with women, but actually that margin has shrunk. So that's a very important thing to look at. Also, the suburban white women, you know, the soccer moms, that's been a key indicator, and he's up 3 points in that group. So I think it's smooth sailing. I know he's giving a speech right now. I was listening to it on the way over here. Just tremendous emphasis on the economy, on immigration, the disastrous policies that this administration and Kamala Harris have led to probably one of the worst economies and one of the most crime waves that we have seen in a long time. But in order to dissect this and break it down and really get into a lot of the nuts and bolts, I've invited our good friend Jim Hansen, former Special Forces. He is the president and CEO of one of the most probably strategic communications companies out there. Jim, welcome to the show.
Ivan, good to be going rogue with you, brother.
Hey, I appreciate it, man. If anybody knows about going rogue, it's you, right?
That's it.
And in real life, rogue. So I botched the name of your company, so I apologize. What is it, please? And where can they find it?
World Strat's the company. We do information operations. We fight the narrative war.
And where can they find you?
WorldStrat.com.
And what about social media?
Well, that's Jim Hansen, DC, man. Everybody should follow me because I'm freaking hilarious.
That's right. And you pull a stunt double for our friend Seb over on his show.
Once in a while, he gives me the mic. Yeah.
That's right. Hey, so what do you think? What do you think is going on? We saw 2020. So let me kind of tee you up here. So we saw 2020. It was probably the largest psyops operation ever performed in human history, and it was done on the American people, right? And the left was very proud of it. They had a Time magazine article that walked everybody through how they pulled it off. We don't see that happening right now, do we?
Well, they're trying. They're just failing dismally. That's the thing. First of all, we caught them last time. Yeah. We couldn't stop them, right? We didn't catch it in time, but we caught them. We exposed it. Everybody knows they were lying, cheating, and stealing during that election. Yep. And now they're trying the same old tricks, and it's going nowhere. You know, with Biden, at least they had like a nothing burger, you know, who they could put a little ketchup on, you know, maybe some onions, maybe something like that. With Kamala, they just got word salad, and nobody's on that diet.
Yeah. So, question on that. Is it, so I guess you kind of answered that. So it is the candidate, and that's why it's not working? Or do you think it's a combination?
It's hugely the candidate.
It is hugely a candidate, right? I mean, when you look at her, she's a disaster. I mean, she can't answer anything. She's a mess, right?
She is a blessing to our team. I think the problem they had, and they did this, they had Biden, right, who they put in through a coup, and then they added her as a diversity candidate, you know, to pander to their identity politics groups, and then they're stuck with her, and that's the problem. She was a miserable failure, as borders are, and everything else throughout the whole Biden administration. Now, when they got to remove Joe through another coup, they're stuck with it because you throw her out, all their identity politics groups would lose their mind. Yeah. So they're stuck with one of the worst candidates in modern history, and I couldn't be happier.
No, I agree with that. But you see the left. I mean, I don't know how much you watch Morning Joke, but I kind of feel bad for Joe. They are going nuts. And everybody is focused right now on Trump as a fascist, you know, his democracy, et cetera, and it's going nowhere. Nobody gives a shit anymore. You know, I saw this morning on CNN. You know, they're on the street in New York, in Manhattan, after the rally. And they're talking to just regular people, and they're like, do you think Trump is dangerous for democracy? You know, that's what the Kamala Harris campaign is saying, that he's a threat to democracy, that he's a fascist. You know, does that affect you? Does that bother you? And people are like, no. And they're like, why? Well, because I don't think it's true. He wasn't a fascist or a dictator when he was president. The country's in terrible shape, and I'm going to vote for Trump. Never seen that in Manhattan. Never seen that in Manhattan.
Isn't it awesome?
Psychos.
He went and planted the flag right in the middle of enemy territory, made everybody cover it, and now they're just screaming. You made a point that I think is important here. They're claiming that Trump's the fascist when there's evidence that he demonstrably was not. Right. At the same time, didn't Steve Bannon get out of jail today?
Yeah.
Wasn't Steve Bannon a political prisoner of the Biden-Harris administration on a completely trumped-up set of charges, like all of the trumped-up charges against Trump? And now they're trying to claim, Kamala literally tweeted out, if Trump is allowed back in, he will weaponize the justice system against his political enemies. Come on. I mean, that's exactly the biggest case of projection on earth.
Yeah, that's exactly what they've done for 4 years, right? I mean,
yep.
Yes, hey, Steve's our friend, and, he just got out, this morning. But Peter Navarro was also in, right? The weaponization, look, it goes all the way back to the Russian hoax. They went after everybody, and they said, "Oh, but they got indictments." Yeah, they got indictments for somebody not paying their parking tickets. Nothing to do with Russian collusion. It was all a farce. It was all weaponization. Look, we've seen this. Jim, you're a comms guy, special forces guy. You've traveled the world. You've helped probably topple many bad regimes. Right? And we've seen how these other regimes operate, and they're doing it the same here. And I was talking to somebody the other day, and they're like, well, you think they're going to do that here? And I said, absolutely. See, if you believe that the problem is local, you're crazy. The problem is global. They're very well organized, very well funded, and they go test these things out in other markets. And once they get it right, they bring it in here, and that's what they're doing. It's I think it's very dangerous. Hopefully, Trump wins decisively, and we can send wokeness and this madness to the dustbins of history, as our friend on the left used to say, Brennan, right?
Yeah. Well, now here's the thing. Now you made a good point about the global nature of this, because it's always the revolution. They put a different, the current thing. They come up with the current thing. Oh, it's going to be COVID, and then it's going to be Ukraine, and then it's going to be all of these things. And now it's Trump's a fascist and Hitler, right? They're always rebranding it, but it's about the revolution to scare the masses into submission and bow down to their, in this case, woke Democrat overlords. And I think they've done a much better job in Europe and other places, and they've tried it here. The problem they have here is we literally do still have free speech. Elon is saving that almost single-handedly. Yep. But you've also got a culture that is just not prone to bowing down. Part of it is probably 30-40% of our culture is fine as sheep following along, to the herd or to the flock. But the rest of us are like, screw you guys. You can't make us. And that's what's killing them.
And that's a great point, Jim, because I think in the past, and you remember when, just a couple of years ago, when we launched Americano Media, we were right smack in the middle of this cancel culture. We had everybody coming after us. I mean, I'll talk about this later on very publicly. But, we had DOJ people checking us. We had lawyers from the House committee that was, investigating this and this information. I mean, there was all kinds of madness, and we saw people getting canceled, going after them, their family, their spouse, their jobs, trying to destroy their businesses. You don't see that right now anymore. Has that gone away? Is it dead, or is it kind of like idle and people are fed up with it, or is it let's see who wins to see what side of the fence I go?
Yeah, I think a little of all of that. I think where they went wrong is the same thing they did with the race card. You can only play it so many times before it's maxed out. Now you call me a racist, I laugh at you. Yeah, okay, I'm a racist. Yeah. Who cares? And they did kind of the same thing with all of the ridiculous charges and claiming that everyone on the right is a threat to democracy, while they were actually threatening democracy themselves. So I think they're going to see that. And I hope Trump comes into office not with this sweetness and light milk of human kindness thing. I don't care if he plays that up front, but I want retribution for the damage that's been done to all the people who suffered because of abuse of power by the woke left. And it's a long list. And I have a list, and so do a lot of other people. Yeah. I want to see them pay, not because I'm a particularly vengeful person, but because if we don't make them pay, they'll do it again. And that's what needs to happen. They need to suffer, and then we can say, now, you guys want to change the rules because these were your rules. You made us play by them. Let's change them now.
Well, he made a good point about that, right? That he could have sent Hillary Clinton to prison for a long time, and he didn't, and he stopped that from happening. But look what happens when you're a nice guy, right? You're a nice guy, and you help people, and you say, you know what, let's give people a second chance. And then they come back and stab you in the back and, cut your throat and try and gut you like a fish, right? So, I don't know. My main concern, Jim, is this, is I hope that he goes in and he doesn't surround himself by a bunch of rhinos and establishment guys. They're gonna try and sit there and make peace with everybody. I don't think it's peacetime anymore. I think it is wartime. I think, what they've done to everybody, like you said, many friends that we share in common too, by the way,
Absolutely.
That they've destroyed them, their family, they've been chased out of their own hometowns, etc. That should not go unanswered. That should not go unanswered. And we should fix this. I hope he goes into Washington, kicks the table over, fixes things, fires people. I mean, the Elon Musk efficiency agency would be fantastic, and go fire 3/4 of the federal government and, tell them to go get a real job, right? I don't know, man. I mean, the waste and the stupidity that happens in Washington. I mean, you're living in D.C. right now. I was there just last week. I grew up my entire life in D.C., and, it's not the same place that it was in the 70s when I was growing up. Now
it's always been bad. It's always been a bad place. It's always been the home.
And crazy, and this cancel culture, and they will try and shame you and destroy you. And, that didn't happen back then. That didn't happen in the 70s, and not in the 80s. I mean, it was always adversarial, but, there was some civility. I don't think there's any civility at all today.
No, you cannot any longer agree to disagree. And they started that. We were always willing to do that, which is why we got rolled for so many years, because they understood that they were playing for power. We thought we were playing for the moral high ground, and that was just not it. So now that we've adopted their rules, we need to finish this before we can make peace. And that means we need to win. They need to be crushed. They need to be hurt. And the rules, all of that stuff needs to be ripped out. You talked about Elon's thing, the Department of Government Efficiency, DOG, which I think is amazing and awesome. I answered, he was tweeting about that today, and I answered him on X, and I said, Kurt Schlichter and I volunteered to be the Bobs from Office Space, if people remember that. The two guys who sat there. So tell me what it is that you do here. Oh, nothing? Pack. And we just have a moving truck outside and a bunch of boxes. Put your stuff in it and get out. Check people's hard drives. If more than 1/4 of your hard drive has Excel spreadsheets and PowerPoint presentations, you're fired. Get out. We don't need you. You are not a productive member.
I agree. And, in talking about government efficiency, right, we know for a fact that there is a problem with a lot of the agencies, FBI, CIA, DIA, NSA, I guess. There's an office that nobody really talks about, Jim, and I don't know if people just don't want to touch that for a lot of reasons. But I'm going to ask you that, and you have the opportunity to sit there and say pass, or do whatever. But it's the Office of Net Assessment. You don't want to touch it.
That's it. No, I don't care. I mean, come on, dude. I'm already on all the lists anyhow. So there's nothing I'm going to say or do.
None of my buddies want to touch it. Agency guys, nobody wants to touch it. And I'm like, come on, man. Somebody's got to touch it. I mean, Grassley was on it, and then all of a sudden he stopped. Didn't explain why, and he just, some people say, somebody's holding pictures on Grassley on something, right? Because it was evident that Peter Strzok was going into the Office of Net Assessment. There was complete coordination in that attempted coup. What is their role? What do they play? Are they involved now? And, does that office need to be shut down, cleaned out, and find out what the hell they were doing in 2020 and 16?
I think that's a fair thing to say. One of the things, if you're looking at, all right, everyone talks about the deep state, and I think that became an understood term.
Yep.
I think a better term was the permanent bureaucracy.
Yep.
All right, they're the people who stay there. They mean the same thing. It's essentially the fact that 90+% of government employees are Democrats, leftists, and then out of that, a large percentage of them are the woke activist left.
Yeah.
Now, the problem with something like the Office of Net Assessment or other places like that, where they have a broad writ to poke around in things and spy and collect information, and in some cases conduct operations, is there's no accountability. You know, if a guy like Chuck Grassley can't get them to bow down and answer to him, then we have a big problem.
Yeah.
So I think one of the things to do is take all of the entities that were involved over the past 20 years in conducting partisan-driven ideological activities against the American people and shut them down, or just neuter them. You know, to the point where they have no money, they have no funding, and all of their people are being investigated for malfeasance and in many cases crimes against the American people. And I think maybe we have, you know, hearings like they've had before when the intelligence community got out of hand, and go ahead and let's have open hearings. Let's declassify everything. Trump's a big fan of that. Declassify because the American people have a right to know.
Well,
and let's bring it out in the
right?
sunlight and see if we ever want that to happen again.
And he said on Joe Rogan that he's going to open up the Kennedy files and everything else too, right? Look, I've talked to agency buddies. I'm pretty sure you've talked to a whole bunch as well. And everybody believes that the agency was involved in one way or another with the Kennedy assassination. There are books actually by far left people claiming that. I guess we're going to find out when Trump wins. But, you know, a buddy of mine who's a former NSA told me that the issue with net assessment is real. It's a real threat. And the first thing that Trump should do is, you know, day one, have a team ready to go in there, walk in and escort everybody out, take badges and control the servers, cut everything off and make sure nobody wipes anything, and go and sniff through everything over the last 20 years. And we're going to get a lot of answers. And I don't know if, you know, Trump would be willing to do that, if he's going to do that, but you know, Jim, I think there needs to be a gutting of the federal government, including some of these agencies, you know, that are a big problem.
Elon said he'd cut $2 trillion from the budget.
Jesus.
And that's, but think about how big the budget has to be. That's what, a third? I think we're at more than $6 billion, maybe more than that. Our budget is absurd. Republicans are complicit in this. You know, and this is going to be a painful awakening. The fact that in the course of doing what we absolutely have to do to save our economy, to save the republic as a functioning financial entity, we can use that to go ahead and shut down all of these extraneous bureaucrats who now are number one, just a drag on the country as a whole, before we even get to the ones who are actively undermining the Constitution to go ahead and push the agenda of the left. So I think it's time to go at those people hard, move them out, shut them down. Schedule F is a way to go ahead and lower the bar on who can be fired during a political administration, you know, which are political appointees and which are protected government employees of the long term. Lower that down 3 or 4 more levels, and let's get those people who have been abusing their power out of the swamp.
No, 100%. I think, look, like anything, right? Like a company, like government, like anything, you can't have too much fat, you know, or else you start bleeding out and you start burning out, you run out of cash, and then you're done. So, you know, the government's no different. The problem is that we just print money, you know, or raise taxes and, you know, get more and more in debt. And, it's, you know, but no company in the history of the world would have lasted this long. You know, they would have run out of cash a long time ago. So
come on, we've got nukes is the only reason that the U.S. dollar is still the most respected currency. We're the biggest, baddest thing on the planet. That's not going to change. But at some point, 36 trillion, I don't even know what our debt is. It goes up so fast.
I think it's like 36
is an
trillion
absurd amount. Even compared to GDP, I don't care how much that goes up. It's an absurd amount of debt. And we either deal with that, or at some point, you know, we could literally end up in a situation where we get undermined by the Chinese, the Russians, the Indians, that BRICS coalition, trying to go ahead and become reserve currency.
Hey, so switching gears a little bit. I mean, you know your way around the planet pretty well, right? Daytime and nighttime. Israel, Iran.
Okay.
It's a shit show.
It's been going on, obviously, for a long time. Iran has been the spider at the center of the web. There's no point in talking about Israel and Hamas. What you're actually talking about is Iran and its seven-front war against Israel using Hamas, the Houthis, Hezbollah, the militias in Iraq and Syria. They started this because they were concerned that there was going to be some sort of normalization of relations between the Saudis and Israel, a la the Abraham Accords that Trump started. Yep. And they couldn't have that. Iran needs to be the head troublemaker in order to control that region. And I think now we're at the point where Israel knocked out an awful lot of air defense systems in that last set of raids. Yeah. And it would not surprise me after the election, if they get the result they want, and we want, and the world wants, that they go ahead and do what everyone knows needs to be done and whack Iran's nuclear facilities.
Yep. And okay, so this is we know the answer, right? But let's hear an expert say it. Trump has been talking about this entire shit show that's been going around the world for the last 4 years. Didn't happen when he was president. It happened as soon as he left. So it is a projection of weakness. It is the administration. Is it because they have some corrupt agenda? Is it because there is something else going on? I mean, why would they give Iran billions of dollars? Why would they prop them up after they're almost dead? Why would you give China life after we had them on their heels and they were freaking backpedaling, right? I mean, it's fucking stupid.
I think they have long believed, as part of a globalist agenda, that America carries too much weight around the world. We throw our weight around and we shouldn't. So they want America to be one of the community of nations, not the indispensable nation, which is what we actually are.
That's what
and
the
if you look
wants.
what they did with Iran, I mean, it started with Obama. They went ahead and decided, and this maintains to this day, through Biden and Harris, they all believe that Iran is the solution, not the problem. So they do things like give them money. They do things like push Israel to not destroy them when they should. And they've even had members, somebody leaked Israel's attack plans. Wow. The top secret special access program plans got leaked about what Israel was targeting and how they were going to go about the attacks from inside the Biden-Harris administration. So they are actively undermining our ally in the region in favor of our enemy in the region. And that's, it's some sort of traitorous.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Wouldn't that be considered treason or some kind of crime?
If we're not, technically treason requires us to be at war. If we're not at war with Iran, I think, it's only because we don't use the word. They have attacked U.S. interests with all of their proxies that they paid for, trained, and operated and ordered to do this. So they're at war with us, whether we want to admit it or not. And that means if you help them, you are committing treason.
And we know for a fact that they have an active plot to try and assassinate Trump, right? Wouldn't that be considered an act of war?
Maybe not. Trump's a private citizen right now. I don't know that, but that doesn't mean there aren't a dozen or more, dozens of more other reasons that are actual acts of war that they've committed against us. So if we needed a reason to consider Iran at war, it's just waking up and stopping people from lying about that fact. They're at war with us. We're pretending we're not at war with them. And I don't want a force-on-force war with Iran. Right. I think best case scenario is the people of Iran overthrowing the Islamic Republic and becoming, because the people of Iran don't like their leaders either. Yeah. It would be nice if we had an American president stand up and say, maybe the Islamic Republic of Iran has reached or passed its expiration date and they deserve better government. Yeah. That would be a good start.
I just remember when Saddam Hussein tried to assassinate 41. Clinton was in office, and he, lobbed a couple of tomahawks over at Saddam Hussein, right? How come we haven't done anything?
No, and we underplayed everything. I think I understand at some level not wanting to light the whole Middle East on fire until Iran actually lit the whole Middle East on fire. And at this point, not reacting to that properly is a major mistake. It shows, again, more weakness. It invites more, tyrants around the world to be emboldened and feel like they can do what they want because there is no strong leadership. There is no deterrence of anyone who fears the retribution of the United States of America. And that's a dangerous situation for the whole world.
Absolutely. And so when Hugo Chavez was alive, you know this, right? His consul general in Damascus, Syria, was giving visas to Hamas, Hezbollah, the Iranians, etc. They're all going into Venezuela, getting Venezuelan identities, running rampant all throughout Latin America, playing with the cartels. Why are Democrats so stupid and don't want to believe or understand that all those people probably are in our country today and came through the southern border like everybody else? Why do they deny that?
You know, even the ones they've caught, there's a list of at least 100 known terrorists that we've run into, you know, crossing the border. And those are the ones we caught. We're not catching even a tenth, a hundredth of the people who are coming across the border. So the idea that these people have been essentially given a free pass to enter the United States, to set up shop, to probably be, you know, gaining U.S. funds from programs designed for migrants, you know, or refugees, and are literally, we're paying them to be sleeper cells in our own country after they were invited in by the incompetent current administration. It's stunning and painful to think about how many levels of wrong that is.
That's crazy. So back to the border. Mm-hmm. The Biden administration obviously dismantled everything that Trump had put together to keep us safe. How fast can he put it back together?
I think he'll put it back together very rapidly because, number one, you just stop the flow. Yep. All right. You know, whatever you have to do right now, okay, there are no more. Nope, sorry. Last asylum application was done. We're not taking any more. And then you take all of the ones in the queue, and instead of saying you've got a hearing in 7 years, you're like, okay, you've got, you know, 1 month to be back at the border station, and we'll give you your 15-minute hearing because you're an economic migrant. You are not a refugee looking for asylum, which the left very smartly, they took and read the actual law, taught these people in, you know, Mexico and farther down the chain coming up from Central and South America, what to say to the border agents that would force them then by our laws to allow them to claim refugee status. 99% of the people who came in are absolutely not. They are, you know, I don't blame them. I don't, you know, blame anyone for trying to come to America for a better life, but you can't. That's not the way it works. Right. We decide how many people come in from where and why. And I think Trump will be able to shut that down. And hopefully on the other side, he'll go ahead and to deflect, you know, criticism from that, say we're going to have immigration. There you go. We're going to have legal immigration based on merit. Yep. What do you bring that the United States of America needs? And those are the people we ought to be letting in. If you got doctors, engineers, lawyers from countries that do not have a beef with the United States, you know, from places that are productive and can be trusted, and we can verify the identities, those people come in and they do what everybody did. They assimilate and they become part of the American dream.
That's right. And Trump has said that, right? That he is not against immigration. Yeah. He's against illegal immigration. On the contrary, he's pro-immigration. He's saying everybody that comes here and goes to a U.S. university and graduates with a graduate degree should automatically have a say if they want, right? Because we want people that are qualified, people that can contribute to the economy, to the country, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think that's a bad thing because there was this whole argument on the left. Well, if you get rid of immigration, it's going to collapse the economy. You know, immigrants contribute. Well, that's not necessarily true. And then the other stupid argument is, well, who's going to pick the crops? Well, I don't know. You know, pay somebody better, or you know, get trucks. I don't know. But you know,
or a guest worker program. There's nothing wrong with a guest worker program if you want to do that. You know, but control it. The idea that we just basically put up a sign on the southern border that said, come on in, you know, whatever you want to do, feel free, come on in, we need you. And it's absurd. So we decide who we want to come in legally. If we need people to pick crops, great. You know, we make a deal that says you can come in and pick crops, and maybe you do that for 10 years, and you get a better chance at getting a green card. But, you know, we want people to have a process where you're not just breaking the law to come in and then being rewarded. You know, play by the rules. Let's set some smart rules, and then let's get as many people who can become productive members of society to come to America. That strengthens our country.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I remember Bush did that, right? He did a guest worker program, right? Especially for that, for agro and for cattle, right?
Yep. Nothing wrong with that.
So why the hell can't we do that again? It's absolutely stupid. How do you see the election? We're a week away.
We're going to win. I don't see how they have enough cheat. I can tell you in 2019, all right, my wife and I were doing some work on basically election integrity before it was really a big thing. We found in Orange County, California, that there were a ton of registrations of people. Now, Orange County is a Republican stronghold, one of the few in California. All right, and in 2018, there were 6 Republican seats there that were lost to Democrats for the first time in forever. And because California passed a law that said you could look at the voter rolls, we looked at the voter rolls. And the voter rolls included tons of people who were registered at dog parks, at Starbucks, at government buildings, and all of these people, they had a physical address there in Orange County and a mailing address of a P.O. box in Sacramento where the Democrats could collect those ballots. It was 100% the test of their ballot harvesting thing. They did it in 2018. It worked in Orange County. And we brought that information to the RNC and they did nothing with it. And look what happened in 2020. Yeah. That's really how they won. That's the steal and the cheat from 2020 was they registered people, harvested their ballots, and inundated places that were no longer checking signatures. They weren't checking dates. They weren't validating ballots. So I think that's something that now at least we know it's happening. We're watching, and our team's registering people and collecting ballots to fight against it.
Yep. So. It's interesting that you bring that up. That you told a party. I remember we talked about it actually. In I can't remember in some kind of cafeteria or diner in Arlington. We talked about this. But why does our party? Why does our side not react? Why are they weak? It's almost like they're a bunch of fucking pussies, Jim. What the fuck is wrong with these people,
I wouldn't disagree. The problem, I think,
is it just because they grew up, I don't know, dude, wearing sweaters and, I never got fucking punched in the face once or something? I mean, it's like, dude, what the fuck is wrong with you? They have the opportunity to hit back. They have the opportunity to go fucking do something, to go fight, and they don't. They it's almost like they're scared. They're scared to engage. They're scared that, I don't know, somebody's going to call them a bad name or somebody might slap them has that changed with Trump? I mean, are we starting to fucking become men again? Or is this feminization?
No, it's a totally different party. The Republican Party you're talking about and the remnants of the establishment that are still in the party, and they're still there. There's a large number of them. Came up, they're the kind of the country club Republicans. They are soft. They were protected by the system. They grew up and were brought up through a system that protected them. Nothing bad could happen to them. And they were always told you must, stand on the moral high ground. You will never get in the mud and fight and do those kind of things because that's low. It's better to lose gracefully than it is to get in the gutter and fight. And the Democrats figured that out. And they took advantage of it. And they fought dirty. And they used everything against us, and those kind of people were like, oh my God, I don't know what's happening. But they had no ability to comprehend that and do what you just said and punch them back in the face. You got to do that. If you get punched in the face and you just go, oh my God, that was mean, please don't do that again. And we're gonna try this again next time, but please don't punch me in the face. They're gonna punch you in the face. You got to punch them back. And now I think we have a populace. It's completely flipped in the past 20 years. Now the Republicans are the party of the people, and the Democrats are the party of victim groups, but served by the so-called elites. Who are now the credentialed high Democrat, solons of education and academia and government and all that stuff, who will then tell the minions how to live their lives. It's part of that's the whole globalist plan. It's working here in America because the Republicans weren't fighting back until Trump. Now that Trump has been there and is coming back again, that is going to flip again, and we're not going to put up with that.
And that's what I was wondering. This second time around, he gets to do it right now. And he learned from the first 4 years. He knows where the mistakes were made. I don't think he's going to bring any of those establishment people back. I don't think so. I just can't imagine. Because they're not going to let him do what he needs to do in order to clean this house, right?
I think he's got a better handle on it. I think if Donald Trump has one weakness, it's personnel. I mean, everybody knows that. He's very prone to wanting people around him who tell him, what he wants to hear. And then he's prone to not wanting to create too much of a ruckus. Now, even with all that said, I think there is an element of the remaining establishment that has become aware of how they were failing and are willing to join the fight. The question is vetting them for the willingness to fight, a spine check. Anybody who comes into the Trump administration this time around better have a titanium spine and be ready to play the game. And I think that's going to be the key. I hope that's his game plan. I know he's got some people around him this time who have that mentality.
Well, you talk about spine, no backbone mitt. Paul Ryan, they're never going to come around, ever.
No.
Right?
No.
So how do you purge their influence? Because Paul Ryan's over sitting on the board at Fox, right? And he's got his hands on a million things. Same thing with so many other people that, we know with first and last names, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I think there's a great opportunity. I think he's going to crush it. I think he's going to do great. I just hope he really goes in there and cleans house. And, is it going to be a clean sweep on the battlegrounds? Or do you see any surprises, any new states being picked up?
Well, that's the fun part. I think we're now at the point where he stopped worrying as much. I mean, it's not that they're ignoring the battleground states. They're blanketing them as much as they can.
Yep.
But he had the freedom to do things like go to California and go to Coachella. Yeah. He went and gave a speech at Coachella where the hippies go to dance.
Yeah.
I thought that was awesome. Then he goes to Madison Square Garden, and those are things where it's not about talking to the people right there. Trump's not going to win New York City, but he's going to win voters to his side by having the guts to go to New York City and do that. And I think that mentality shows how much the tide has turned. Now it is a powerful Trump campaign. And I'm going to say very well run. Yeah. I have been so pleasantly surprised by how smartly this campaign has been run that I just want to give them kudos and credit for that. It's been the best run Republican campaign of my lifetime.
Yeah, and it's been very disciplined, which is good. So going back to Madison Square Garden, we had a comedian out there that, threw a stupid-ass joke. I mean, what a fucking idiot, right?
Right.
Dude, if he's doing stand-up, somewhere else, dude, everybody laughs at that joke. This is a political rally, and he throws that out there. You notice that nobody laughed. Nobody laughed.
Yeah, the crowd booed him.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what the mainstream media doesn't want to cover. No. The regime media doesn't want to point out. He dropped that joke, and he got booed by the crowd in Madison Square Garden.
It was ridiculous. But that's all they're pushing. You have the Harris campaign throwing their surrogates out in Spanish language media all day long, crushing this. And, I don't think it's going to move the needle, man. It's not resonating. I've had a bunch of friends, that day, that night, texting me, giving me shit. Dude, what the fuck? I was like, dude, take it in context. He's a comedian. He's an insult comedian. That's what they do. He didn't have a good sense to gauge the audience, where that probably wasn't the right audience or the right platform to do those kinds of jokes. But it's harmless, right? And I think everybody got it. And it's funny because I've had friends that did not vote for Trump in 2016, did not vote for him in 2020, and they're going to vote for him in 2024. And you see that, the blacks, 32% of blacks are voting for Trump compared to 8%. Hispanics, I think, I saw a poll last week that had Trump at 54 and Kamala Harris at 39. That is huge. Isn't that awesome? Man, that's huge. And he's leading nationally right now in two polls. The last one by CBS, so that one's watered down.
Right.
And then he's up in every single battleground. How does he lose? Is it a turn out the vote effort? Right at this point.
Yeah, but that's always done on motivation and excitement.
Yep.
The left is not excited. There's an element of the left that is rabid,
yeah.
And they all already voted.
Yeah.
The people who would normally break one way or the other, the great undecided center, break towards momentum. And right now, all the momentum's with Trump. And I think about your point about the voters of color.
Yeah.
I think it's insulting the way the Democrats treat anybody with more melanin than me.
Yeah.
It's like you owe us your vote because Republicans are horrible people. And it doesn't matter if we screwed up the country and the economy and drove it into the ground and now you can't afford gas and groceries. You still have to vote for us because we hate Trump. And they're like, wait a minute, I have agency. I'm a person. I'm a human. I have a family. Yeah. I have motivation. I want to make life better for my kids than it was for me. I want those things to happen. They were happening under Trump.
They were.
And then you guys ruined the country. Why on earth would I vote for you? Then you get Barack Obama coming out and giving black men a hard time.
Calling out the brothers.
Black
calling
men
out
have
the
to vote
brothers.
for her?
Yeah. Calling out the brothers. Come on, man. And it was taken. It totally backfired, by the way. It was taken.
I think so.
Offensive. Look, I was in Washington last week, as you know, doing a hit on the election, and I was debating a pretty, tenured, solid, Democrat, and it was amazing because that guy was full on Obama, full on Bill Clinton, full on Hillary, full on Joe Biden. And when we got into the numbers, because this guy's a PhD in economics, we got into the numbers and we talked about this. Who had the lowest unemployment for blacks, for Hispanics, for Asians, for women in the history of the world? Donald Trump.
Yeah.
For the first time in a decade, and over a decade, wages went up. Who are the most impacted beneficially? Hispanics. Small business for minorities blew up. Largest blow up in history. I mean, they expanded tremendously. It was never done before Trump. And we talked about inflation. We were at 1.2%. We got up to like almost 8% with Biden. Once you start getting into those numbers, and then he's like, well, the unemployment. I said, yeah, but what's the labor force participation rate? It was the lowest under Trump. It's the highest now. You say the unemployment's low, but look at the labor force participation rate. Nobody's fucking working, dude.
Right.
And
they just gave up.
Yeah, and all their claims ran out, so they don't even show up. So at the end, the analyst goes, well, who do you think is going to be better for the economy? And this guy goes, Trump. It was hilarious. It was hilarious. I was like, man, it wasn't even a debate. So, I think people are catching on. People are realizing, okay, maybe I don't like him. Maybe I don't like his tweets. Maybe he's an asshole. Whatever the opinion they have, but they can't walk away from the fact that the country was better off 4 years ago than it is today. I mean, that's a tragedy.
That is the number one best thing any politician who has a track record can say against one who is in office. When I was in charge, were you better off? Everybody says yes.
Yep.
Everybody says yes, and that's why he's going to win. That's why, regardless, you can't poll America anymore. There is no way to poll this country. It's too weird. But what you can do is gauge the sentiment. And you can watch the way things are going. And that poly-market betting thing is the best gauge you're going to see. And that gap is growing wider every day.
It is, right? And that's what I was going to say. I mean, look, the Sunday, right, Madison Square Garden, that felt like a campaign that's winning.
Yeah.
Right? The aura, the energy, the excitement. Everybody was happy. Nobody was tense. Everybody was having a good time. Everybody believed, this is it. We're going to win. Hey, Jim, I know you got to run, man. Any last words from you?
Hey, stay strong, vote hard, get your friends and family out, talk to your neighbors, everybody. Don't give them a second. Too big to rig is legit. So let's get everybody we can out to vote because, number one, we got to win. And number two, the more people we get out, the bigger the mandate. Let's crush them.
Absolutely, Jim. And again, what's your Twitter handle?
Jim Hansen, DC.
All right, my brother. I appreciate you. We need to have a bourbon next time with Wolf next time I'm up there. So I'll give you a buzz.
We'll make it happen.
All right, take care, Jim. Awesome.
Right, bye-bye.
All right, guys. So you heard it from the great Jim Hansen. Get out and vote. Call your family. Offer rides. Do whatever it takes to make sure that you get out there. You vote early, and you make it happen. All right. You can follow us on Rumble on every single podcast platform, and we'll see you tomorrow. Take care.